Carl Jung once said, "Where your fear is, there is your task." And so begins the silent war of the man who never speaks about what he feels. He walks through life wearing the armor he was given as a boy. Be strong. Don't cry. Real men don't show weakness. These aren't just words, they are commands engraved deep into his mind, forming invisible chains that tighten every time emotion stirs within him. He wants to speak. There are nights he lies awake, rehearsing what he would say if he dared, but each time, another voice whispers louder, "Don't do it. Nothing will change. They won't understand. You'll look weak." And so, he stays silent. Friedrich Nietzsche warned, "What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not an end." But how can he be a bridge between his inner world and the world outside if he never lets anyone cross? Instead, he becomes an island. From the outside, he looks steady, confident, in control. But inside, the storm builds. Every unsaid word, every swallowed truth, becomes weight he carries alone. He tells himself, this is strength. But it is not strength. It is fear dressed as control. He is not protecting others from his feelings. He is protecting himself from the terror of being seen, known, and possibly rejected. William James once wrote, "The deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated." And that is the heart of his silence. He fears that if he reveals himself, his real self, the self behind the mask, he will lose that appreciation. So he keeps the mask in place. He gives pieces of himself that feel safe, jokes, achievements, logic, but never the raw truth. And she, the one who wants to know him, feels it. She feels the distance, though he stands beside her. She senses the wall, though he smiles, and he sees her confusion, but he cannot cross the space between them, because to do so, he would have to face his deepest fear, that maybe, just maybe, if he speaks, he will be left alone anyway. And so, the silence grows thicker, not because he has nothing to say, but because he believes he must not say it. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster." And this is the hidden battle of the man who never speaks his heart. He fights so hard to protect himself from imagined monsters, rejection, judgment, shame, that he does not see the monster he becomes to himself. A man divided, a man who cannot rest because he is always on guard. He fears that if he lets down his shield, even for a moment, everything he has built will fall apart, so he holds it tighter. He speaks, but only in ways that keep him safe. Logic instead of feeling, jokes instead of truth, work instead of connection. And she feels it. She reaches for his hand, but feels the armor. She leans in, but feels the distance. He tells himself this is love, protecting her from his storm, but in truth, it is fear, protecting himself from her, knowing the storm exists. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And this is his terror, that if he lets her see his true self, his confusion, his wounds, his need, she will walk away. So he keeps her close enough to see his mask, but far enough that she never sees behind it. And in doing so, he creates the very thing he fears: loneliness. She stays, but she does not feel him. She loves, but she touches only the surface. And he wonders why he feels so alone. But how could it be otherwise? How can you be known if you never allow yourself to be seen? And so the silence grows. Not because he lacks words, but because he fears what the words will reveal. Not because he has nothing to give, but because he fears what will be taken if he does. He thinks silence keeps him safe, but it keeps him separate. And that is the tragedy of the man who never speaks his feelings. The walls he builds to protect himself become the prison that keeps him alone. Inside his mind, the voice speaks. Don't do it. Nothing will change. Keep it to yourself. A real man doesn't complain. You'll only make things worse if you open up. And so, he listens. Not because he wants to, but because those words feel safer than silence breaking. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "What is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil." And yet, his silence is not beyond good or evil. It is a prison built from fear, fear of the unknown, fear of losing control, fear of letting someone close enough to hurt him. He tells himself, "I'm doing this for her, to protect her, to protect us." But in truth, he is protecting himself from the terror of being known. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And so he fills the space between them with work, distraction, logic. He becomes the master of deflection. He jokes to change the subject. He intellectualizes feelings to keep them at a distance. And all the while she reaches for him. But her hands find only the walls he builds. She senses the truth he hides, and he feels her sorrow. But he tells himself, this is how it has to be. This is strength. Yet, in the quiet moments when the world is still, he wonders, what would happen if I spoke? Would she leave? Would I fall apart? And so, he stays silent, not because he has nothing to say, but because he fears saying it will cost him everything. The tragedy is this. He thinks silence protects the relationship, but it slowly starves it. He thinks distance keeps her close, but it quietly pushes her away. And every unspoken word adds another brick to the wall that keeps them apart. Carl Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But how can he become who he truly is if he never dares to reveal who he truly feels? The man who never speaks his heart lives in exile, not because others banish him, but because he banishes himself. He fears that words will break what silence protects. He fears that if he lets her see his wounds, she will see him as weak. And yet, what he longs for most is not her admiration of his mask, but her acceptance of what lies beneath it. Friedrich Nietzsche said, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed." And this is his tragedy. He clings to the illusion that silence keeps him safe. But silence does not protect. It isolates. It It starves the connection he craves. She waits for him. She offers him a place to lay down his armor. But he hesitates. He stands at the threshold of intimacy and chooses the safety of distance. Not because he wants to, but because he doesn't know how to step through. And so he remains alone, even in love. The man who never speaks his feelings dies with his truths still locked inside him. And the question that haunts him, in quiet moments, in sleepless nights, in the spaces between their words, is this: do I stay silent to protect her, or to protect the image of myself I'm too afraid to lose? Because until he answers that question, he will never know the love he seeks, and he will never know himself.